Short. It's Saturday night.
It's
Glad
Tuesday
you're here,
night, but
kiddo.
that's okay.
Welcome to Author on Mic. And we are flying by the seat of our pants tonight, guys. We're glad you came to join us in this craziness. And to honor everybody's time commitment, our first author tonight fell in love with writing when she made her third grade classmates laugh. Now, a few decades later, this author will tell you how to wrangle a traditional publisher if you bring your own beer. Head, heart, and hands listening in coach practice. Her most recent book won a National Book Prize for Best Nonfiction. Kim will be reading from that book tonight. Authors on Mic is excited to present, drum roll, Kim Dakin. Take it away, Kim.
All right. Chapter 10, Building Trust in a Dangerous World. My father was a decorated Marine second lieutenant leading a platoon in the brutal Korean winter. Like so many men of his generation, he didn't speak of his time in battle, but he did say this: I learned the importance of listening with more than my ears, and that kept me alive. He became adept at interviewing prisoners, not because he understood the language, but because he could read facial expression, gestures, and body language well enough to discern truth from lies about the enemy's positioning, their resources, their plans. Our world doesn't focus much on listening as a critical skill in hostile and dangerous situations. Consciously or unconsciously, we turn to guns, knives, and pepper spray to make us feel safe. Full disclosure, a note here before we dive in. I offer this chapter as an exploration. I have no experience in negotiating with anyone about to commit suicide, nor can I claim to be an undercover CIA operative. I've worked with no clients in either field. But I am curious to explore just how far heart listening can extend as a critical skill into fields with very high stakes, life or death consequences. I also understand that this kind of listening is something we all use as a way to extend our radar in unfamiliar situations, such as a new job, or meeting a significant other's family for the first time, or in trying to keep someone from taking their own life. Empathy, a life-saving skill. Mark Goulston, in his book, Just Listen, begins with a story. Quote, Frank is sitting in his car in a large parking lot and nobody is coming near him because he's holding a shotgun to his throat, unquote. Frank is in his 30s, unemployed, homeless, and alone. The situation has spiraled down to this point: a shotgun at his throat and a SWAT team at his back. Enter Detective Kramer, trained in the deep and empathic listening espoused by Goulston and at the heart of heart listening. Quote, I'll bet you feel that nobody knows what it's like to have tried everything else and be stuck with this as your only way out. Isn't that true? Unquote. Notice the empathy in that statement, as if the speaker was sitting right beside Frank and looking at his life through his frantic and red-rimmed eyes. After he gets over his initial shock that somebody may possibly understand his point of view, he responds, quote, yeah, you're right. Nobody knows and nobody gives a fuck, unquote. This is progress. Kramer continues, quote, and because nobody knows how bad it is, nobody cares, and because nothing goes right and everything goes wrong, that's why you're in your car with a gun wanting to end it all. True? For the first time, there is a hint of calm in Frank's response. True, unquote. Then comes the invitation from the detective, quote, tell me more, unquote. And Frank complies. He lists off all his agonies. He is then asked to be specific about his feelings. Quote, all this has caused you to feel angry, helpless, hopeless, frustrated, overwhelmed. Frank quietly responds with fed up, unquote. What just happened here? Frank has experienced for once, any too long a time, what it's like to be listened to, empathized with, deeply heard. He's been asked to step outside his experience long enough to name his emotions. This provides a small pause in mental desperation, long enough to access what the Buddhists call a second attention. Once this happens, Frank can calm down enough to consider possibilities other than violence. But before he could get to that place, he had to experience being deeply heard. He had to experience heart listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. That was great. Okay, and and now up next, well, let the applause go, and is our the next man on deck is Greg.
Hello. You hear me okay? All right. Have you ever wondered what it felt like to be Archimedes at the moment he discovered the principle of buoyancy and was so overwhelmed that he cried Eureka and ran naked through the streets of ancient Greece? Or to be Einstein when he realized that matter and energy were different manifestations of the same thing? Or to be the first person who wondered, why don't we put wheels on luggage? Through my whimsical Simple Simon tales, you will experience hundreds of aha moments through fictionalized case histories of brilliant innovations. I have the wrong document up. Hold on.
It's okay, just be calm and carry on.
Okay. The following story is from the first book in my series, How to Be Mildly Brilliant. Simple Simon meets Chris. The old man smelled like sour milk. People avoided him. He held a battered cardboard sign that read, "Please help." Few helped. Simple Simon watched him from the park bench where he sat, eating his bag lunch. The old man's long, white, scraggly beard had crusted food embedded in its tangles. His belly burst from beneath his dirty white t-shirt. His wire-rimmed reading glasses were grimy. He spoke rarely, and then only softly, seemingly to himself. People avoided him. Well, to be completely accurate, grown-up people avoided him. Children seemed drawn to him. They would approach him cautiously, their curiosity getting the better of them. It seemed like they wanted to say something to the old man, but they were too scared. Maybe shy would be a better word. When the children's parents turned their attention back to their kids, their eyes would widen with fear, and they would yank their kids back from the smelly old man, the homeless beggar. Simple Simon watched this scene play out day after day as he took a brief lunch break from his job at the big advertising agency. Conflicting emotions swirled through his head. He felt sorry for the old man. He considered giving him some money, but he didn't want to support a possible drug or alcohol habit. Simon saw that the old man's hat collected nothing but small change day after day. How does the old man get by? How can I help him? I could give him some money, but I barely make enough money to pay my own rent. He immediately felt guilty because he certainly had some discretionary money. Simon began dropping change into the old man's hat every day. The old man always looked up and smiled. Simon felt good for about a week. Then he felt bad, almost resentful, because now he felt guilty whenever he didn't give any money to the old man. How can I really help him? I could give him some food, but I don't eat like a king. He immediately felt guilty, of course, because neither did he eat like a pauper. Simon began sharing his lunch with the old man. He always looked up and smiled. Simon felt good for about a week. Then he felt bad, almost resentful, because he felt that he wasn't making a lasting difference in the old man's life. But it's not right that he should depend on me. One sunny June afternoon, Simon watched the familiar scene. Several children had been saved from the old man by their parents. It broke Simon's heart. He watched as one 5-year-old boy temporarily escaped from his parents' watchful eyes, and he stealthily approached the old man. The boy took a few steps forward, paused, and crept onward, never taking his eyes off the old man. He finally overcame his shyness and climbed up onto the old man's lap. 3 things then happened simultaneously. Simple Simon thought, Santa. The little boy shouted, Santa, and the little boy's mother shrieked. The boy was yanked away. The mother scolded him. The boy cried. The old man closed his eyes. And Simple Simon jumped up and ran back to his office. He returned an hour later with a new cardboard sign. The old man was dozing in the sun. Simon quietly replaced the old man's old sign with the new sign. It wasn't long before a family walked by. The little girl did a double take, shook free of her mother's hand, ran up to the old man, and leaped onto his lap. Her parents started to object, then held back. They waited impatiently. Then her mother fumbled in her purse and dropped the $10 bill into the hat, gently pried the girl loose, and hurried the family on its way. The old man was bewildered. Simple Simon just smiled. He stayed on his park bench all afternoon, missing an important meeting, watching the old man and his new fans. The old man gathered more money in that one afternoon than he had in the previous 6 months. As the sun set and the passersby dwindled, he caught Simple Simon's eye and smiled curiously. Simon stood up, walked over, and turned the new cardboard sign around so the old man could see it. It read, "Please help Santa get through the summer."
Thank you, Greg. I forgot to hold up your name. That was great. Okay, now it's my turn. As you know, I'm Annie Parnell, and strolling through the aisles of your local bookstore, you'd find my other books in the historical fiction section. But really, what I write are adventure stories for daring women from then and now. And I love a good happily ever after. But in my work, getting there is always going to be a roller coaster. This evening, I'm reading the opening of my work in progress. The book is called A Man of Business. You're about to meet my heroine, Tegan Harvey, a 7-year-old who is at the beginning of her great adventure. Run! Tegan heard the rapid pounding of her bare feet slapping the naked wood tread of the narrow servants' staircase as she ran up and up and up the never-ending pile of steps. She stopped, pressing back against the bare wooden paneled wall, gasping for air. High above her head, a small lantern glowed. She strained to hear if anyone was closing in on her. "You go up," a man with a deep, raspy voice ordered from below. "I shall go down this hallway and see if the child managed to skitter out the back." All right you are," a higher-pitched man's voice replied. That man sounded close. "Better get a move on. Don't want to get caught." The fat cook's helper almost had me, but Tegan had faked her out and jogged left instead of right. "Oi, you there!" the man with the higher-pitched voice called from the landing a couple dozen steps below Tegan. "You stops right where you are. Don't even think of moving. You're in big trouble, you are. Catch me if you can, you tittering Thomas." Tegan turned and bolted through the door of the landing 2 steps above her. "Whoa!" Tegan slipped. Her feet slipped out from under her on the fancy floor. She righted herself in the nick of time and ducked behind a huge blue and white shiny flower pot, twice her size, just as a young footman, the one with the high-pitched voice, who'd been chasing her, shot out of the door she'd just come through. "Where are you hiding, you little rodent?" The footman looked under the table on the other side of the hallway. "You there," a low-pitched, commanding male voice said. The footman startled and stood up quick like a soldier, shoulders back, chin tucked in. The footman mumbled. "Speak up, man." "Mr. Ellington, sir," the footman said. "Yes?" Mr. Ellington obviously had no patience for dithering. Well, you see, sir, we had lost a child, the footman said. Tegan threw her hand over her mouth to cover her giggles. The West child? Mr. Ellington asked. Oh, no, sir. Our head laundress's granddaughter. She bolted when her grand told her she needed a bath, the footman said. Mr. Ellington shook his head and pinched the bridge of his nose, just like her grand did when she was getting a headache. Find the child and get her back down below immediately. Ellington walked away, heading toward the front door, where another footman stood at attention. We are expecting Lord West any moment, Ellington said to the footman beside the front door. Her footman walked in the opposite direction, away from Mr. Ellington. He moved down the hallway, past where she was hiding, opening doors and peering inside. Come on out, sweetheart, he said. Sweetheart my arse. Hurry up so that I can get the hell out of here, you great lummox. From the spot where Tegan was hiding, she could see the front door and the hallway her footman was walking down. But the area from her present position to the front door was all open space, not a decent place to hide between where she was and making her escape. Even the large table in the center of the room, with a great bunch of posies stuck in some fancy thingamabob on it, was naked, no cloth to duck behind. An entire floor was covered with that slick, fancy tile. The room was all bright and airy, with glass over the front door. Everything shone and smelled nice. Tegan sighed. Now what? The end of that section.
Now what?
Well, thank you all. Now what? We were scheduled with 4, but this is our presentation for this evening, and we're recording. And so this will be up on YouTube in a couple of days, so you can reprise this experience and send your friends to look at it. And in 2 weeks, we'll be doing another production that you'll be hearing about. And if you guys want to come off mic and thank all of you for, showing up for us who are.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you for coming.
Well
I don't
done.
know if we expected anybody to come. So
No, I know.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful readings. It was great.
Oh, well, thank you.
Good work. Yeah.
Thank you. We're the guinea pigs here.
Yeah,
right, we are.
all of us are. So thank you very much. And that ends our presentation.
Okay.
And can I add,
All right.
because this is our first presentation, Annie, if you want to turn the recording off.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.